What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, undefeated, retired, legendary, iconic, superstar boxer, 50-0, the man known as Money, Floyd Money Mayweather, had some interesting takes regarding undefeated three-division world champion, former junior welterweight undisputed world champion, and currently the WBO welterweight world champion superstar boxer, Terence Bud Crawford, who is widely considered the best pound-for-pound boxer in the world. With that said, Floyd Money Mayweather also agrees that Terence Crawford is the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. And he feels like Terence Crawford is being slighted with the current promotional company and current situation that he has, fighting on ESPN, the network, and being under top-ranked CEO and promoter, legendary promoter, Bob Arum. So Floyd Mayweather says that they're not treating him right. Terence Crawford should be a much bigger star than he currently is right now. He says that Terence Crawford has been compared to three-division world champion, unified lightweight world champion, 15 fights, Vasil High-Tech Lomachenko, who has extensive amateur background and probably the best amateur in the history of the sport of boxing, one of the best amateurs in the history of the sport of boxing. But he always gets compared to Vasil Lomachenko because they fight under the same promotional banner and on the same network. And it runs rampant that Vasil Lomachenko is the best fighter in the world. And Floyd Mayweather finds that highly disrespectful, as he says, how could they compare Vasil Lomachenko to Terence Crawford? It's not even close. It's no way in the world that Vasil Lomachenko is a better fighter than Terence Crawford. It's not possible. And he says that Terence Crawford should be a much bigger star than he currently is. But he's allowing himself to be in this situation. He's allowing himself not to capitalize on his skill set and have big fights and should be definitely a bigger star. He's allowing himself to be capped off, is what Floyd Mayweather had to say. And since then, we hear reports coming out from Mike Coppinger stating that it's a possibility that Terence Bud Crawford, who just recently, not too long ago, signed an extension with Top Rank, may be looking to get out of his deal with Top Rank and head over to the PBC, Premier Boxing Champions, with advisor Al Heyman, who is the founder of the PBC and works hand-in-hand with Floyd Mayweather. So, was this calling out from Floyd Mayweather? Was Floyd Mayweather, sending a signal out to Terence Crawford to get him over to the PBC? Who knows? Strong possibility. Floyd Mayweather is a very shrewd businessman. Floyd Mayweather is very smart, right? And everybody was quite baffled when Terence Crawford re-signed the Top Rank, seeing as though he campaigns in the welterweight division and the upper echelon of the welterweights campaign at the PBC, Premier Boxing Champions. And those are the fights that everybody wants to see. So when Terence Bud Crawford re-signed to Top Rank and ESPN, everybody was taken back. Because how are you going to get these big fights? For every big fight, you're going to have to ask two networks, ESPN, or maybe even three networks. Because the Premier Boxing Champions, PBC, deals with Fox and they deal with Showdown exclusively. ESPN deals with, obviously, ESPN. Now, ESPN is the worldwide leader in sports, right? The biggest sporting platform in the world. But they don't indulge in the sport of boxing, dare I say, right? They don't have too much stock in boxing. They used to have Tuesday and Friday night fights. That was their big, boxing platform. They never truly indulged in the mega fights. In yesteryear they have, but in current times, they have not. And then he did away with Tuesday night fights and Friday night fights, right? And so now they have an app, ESPN Plus, in which they stage their boxing matches, their pay-per-view events, right? But they don't, like I said, they don't put too much stock in the sport of boxing. They put stock in the mainstream sports. NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB, NCAA football and basketball, tennis and hockey, tennis and golf occasionally, right? So with that said, you are not going to get much exposure at ESPN. So they pick and choose who they choose to give their attention to and give the exposure to. Mainly, as of late, they've been giving that to Tyson Fury, two-time heavyweight world champion, undefeated British superstar boxer, who is not from the United States, and Vasyl High-Tech Lomachenko, who again is not from the United States. But this is where they seem to put all their attention and all of their stock into. These two gentlemen, right? And Floyd Mayweather finds it highly offensive that they would put their stock and say Vasyl Lomachenko is better than a guy like Terence Crawford. When Terence Crawford is a 3-division world champion himself, like Lomachenko, but Terence Crawford is undisputed. Vasyl Lomachenko has a total of 15 fights, 10 by way of knockout, and he has a loss. On 2 separate occasions, ESPN has tried to erase the loss on Vasyl Lomachenko's resume by placing him up on, as while they're promoting him, with a record of 14-0 with 1 draw, trying to replace the loss with a draw. No, that won't fly, because we all know that he lost to Mexican journeyman superstar boxer Orlando Salido. Yes, it was early in his career. It was his second fight, but he dared to be great early in his career, and essentially it backfired on him. So with that said, he has a loss on his resume, but they tried to erase it. So with having a total of 15 fights and 1 being a loss with 10 knockouts, they tried to say that he's better than that of Terence Bud Crawford, right? Who was, like I said, is a 3-division world champion, just like Vasyl Lomachenko. But the difference is he's undisputed at junior welterweight, and Vasyl Lomachenko is looking to become undisputed. He's yet to become undisputed, right? So Terence Crawford has double his fights. He has 36 victories, 27 by way of knockout, and he's never lost, right? So how do you compare the two? You don't. So this is what Floyd Mayweather finds offensive. All of the big fights, like I said, the upper echelon fights, are over with the PBC. So this is why I was saying that Terence Crawford has grown comfortable with his situation and didn't want to uproot it, and he stayed there, right? Familiarity. We have, in the PBC, you have Danny Garcia, 2-division world champion. You have Showtime Sean Porter, 2-time welterweight world champion. Obviously, you have Errol Spence, undefeated unified WBC IBF welterweight world champion. Then you have the likes of Kell Brook that, he bounces back and forth from the PBC and so on and such. Deals with Matchroom CEO promoter Eddie Hearn, right? Then you have Amir Khan. All of the big fights are simply with the PBC. So when Terence Crawford re-signed with ESPN, it makes it extremely difficult for him to get these fights with these guys, because you're asking these 2 networks, 2 different promotional companies, to come together on multiple occasions to do business and split the pie half and half, opposed to them keeping it in-house and keeping the pie 100%. And what I mean by that is, if ESPN is to do business with PBC, with Sean Porter fight, they have to split the pot 50-50, right? With another network. ESPN has to do business with either Fox or Showtime with the PBC, right? If he was to fight Danny Garcia, same situation, same scenario. If he was to fight Errol Spence, obviously, same situation, same scenario. So you have a Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao situation, just dealing with every single fight Terence Crawford is going to have. They're going to have to negotiate. They're going to have to come up with a plan. Not to mention, you're asking the PBC to do business with Top Rank on every single occasion. ESPN and Top Rank is not going to want to do that, because they have to give a portion of their earnings to another network and another platform. That's the holdup. These are the roadblocks that Terence Crawford has laid out. You understand? So now reports are surfacing that he could be looking to take Floyd Mayweather up on this offer and, look to get out of his contract and maybe delve over in the PBC or be a free agent and be on a fight-by-fight basis. We see Saul Canelo Alvarez, 4-division world champion, Mexican superstar boxer. He's currently the WBA super middleweight world champion. He was unified at the middleweight division. He holds the IBF, or is the WBO, at light heavyweight. So he's a multi-division world champion. He's looking to get out his contract with DAZN, Golden Boy, and looking to stage a fight with Yildirim, Avni Yildirim, for the vacant super middleweight WBC title with the PBC, Premier Boxing Champions. And I'm sure after that, he'll be sticking around to the PBC, a la Manny Pacquiao, who's an 8-division world champion, superstar boxer, who left Top Rank and ESPN and HBO and signed with the PBC and has gotten some of his biggest paydays in his career. With the Adrian Broner fight, upwards of $15 million. And recently, the Keith Thurman fight, upwards of $20 million. That when he was asking for $20 million to face Terence Crawford when he was under the same promotional banner of ESPN and Top Rank and HBO, and he asked for $20 million, they told him he was pricing himself out, and there was no money for that. And he was looking to cash out because it was a passing of the torch type of situation with him and Terence Crawford. And so he left, and it wasn't a passing of the torch situation because he won those fights against Keith Thurman and Adrian Broner. Now, those are more winnable fights, in my opinion, than beating Terence Crawford. But the fact remains is that it wasn't a cash-out fight in the eyes of Manny Pacquiao. It was just a case of him standing on the square and getting what he deserved, what he deserves, what he thought he deserves. So he got the money. So you see guys like Miguel Cotto leaving Top Rank. You see Oscar De La Hoya leaving Top Rank. Floyd Mayweather leaving Top Rank, right? Manny Pacquiao leaving Top Rank. And the list goes on. And these guys, Mikey Garcia leaving Top Rank and getting their biggest paydays. And getting the mega fights, the massive fights that they're seeking. So Terence Crawford could be in a situation like Timothy Bradley, multi-division world champion, multi-time world champion. Timothy Bradley's nothing to sneeze at. Timothy Bradley's a Hall of Famer. But Timothy Bradley never landed those massive mega fights because Timothy Bradley, now he did land the Manny Pacquiao fights, but guess what? Nobody thought he won the first fight, and he didn't win the 2 fights afterwards. Now he got big paydays for those Pacquiao fights, but he didn't get the recognition. He was always recognized for the fact that he got that victory against Manny Pacquiao in the first fight, and he didn't deserve it. Timothy Bradley could have been in a position to fight the upper echelon of the welterweight division, who reside on the PBC, Showdown, but he didn't. So he stayed put, and that was the outcome in his career. Yes, he's a Hall of Famer, but it could have been a lot more, right? Is this the route that Terence Crawford is choosing to go? According to these reports, Terence Crawford is looking to possibly, see what's going on with the PBC. This makes the Errol Spence fight that much easier. If he is able to get out of his contract, get to the PBC, this makes the Errol Spence fight that much easier. And the portion of the pot for Terence Crawford is going to be massive compared to the portion of the pot he will receive fighting Errol Spence and still being with Top Rank and ESPN, because they're going to take a massive chunk of it. If he's with the PBC, he's going to keep that massive chunk. You understand? And it just makes these massive fights for Terence Crawford easier. And Terence Crawford could get the credit he well deserves, because we all know he has the talent in the ring. We all know he has the skill set. We all know the accomplishment he accomplished, right? The only thing holding Terence Crawford back is the matchmaking at his level. I say Top Rank ESPN does a great job building you up. But once you get to a certain level, it's like, unless you are Vasyl Lomachenko, Tyson Fury, even then, even Tyson Fury doesn't get the big fights. We see Teofimo Lopez, campaign for this Lomachenko fight. Bob Arum even told me that he finds it very, very difficult to keep Teofimo Lopez under wraps. He controls his own destination, right? His own destiny. He points the direction he wants to go in. You see, he held out when he felt like he wasn't getting his worth, his just due in the negotiations with Lomachenko. And this is all under the same promotional banner. And then they ended up giving him the money. So is Terence Crawford willing to, uproot his situation, right? Comfortability, familiarity is stronger than anything. And that's the situation he's comfortable in. That's the situation he's familiar with. Is he willing to uproot that to get the massive paydays and the massive fights he so deserves? Only the future will tell. But according to reports, Terence Crawford is looking to, inquire about possibly going to the PBC. Like I said, that makes the Errol Spence fight that much easier because he's behind the 8 ball when it comes to him and Errol Spence. Errol Spence is having these massive mega paydays and pay-per-views and fights, and Terence Crawford is fighting lackluster opponents. That's not going to cut it for the biggest fight in the sport of boxing currently is Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. When he goes to the negotiation table, he's going to be behind on the 8 ball simply because Errol Spence is doing all the heavy lifting and Terence Crawford is staying put. Errol Spence is fighting pay-per-view against Mikey Garcia, 4-division world champion, undefeated, defeats him, and does 350,000 pay-per-views. That one pay-per-view topped 2 of Terence Crawford's pay-per-views against Amir Khan and Victor Postol. Not even close. And he topped it with a landslide. That's not to include the fact that he did massive pay-per-view numbers with Sean Porter in a unification bout. Now he's more than likely going to do even bigger numbers in this pay-per-view with Danny Garcia because of the intrigue and the curiosity to see how he returns from suffering that horrific car accident October 10th of 2019, just 12 days after unifying the belts against Sean Porter September 28th. So everybody's going to want to see how he returns to the ring. What is he going to look like? So you best believe everybody's going to tune in. Not to mention, it's looking like it's going to be at Dallas Cowboy Stadium in his backyard of Dallas, Texas, with fans in attendance. So it's going to be a success. And from him to move on and be victorious in that fight and possibly go into a showdown with Manny Pacquiao is going to be even bigger. And Manny Pacquiao, guess what? Manny Pacquiao loves to fight at, guess where? Dallas, Texas at Cowboy Stadium. He was the first massive fight at that AT&T Cowboy Stadium against Antonio Margarito, I believe it was. So guess what? He loves to fight there. So imagine Manny Pacquiao and Errol Spence at Dallas Cowboy Stadium on pay-per-view. You're talking 1 million pay-per-views. So that would be Errol Spence doing Mikey Garcia pay-per-view successful, Sean Porter pay-per-view successful, Danny Garcia pay-per-view successful, Manny Pacquiao pay-per-view successful. And if he's victorious in all those fights, guess what? He comes out as the WBC, IBF, WBA welterweight world champion. Terence Crawford doesn't have a leg to stand on in negotiations when it comes to him and Errol Spence at that point in time. There's no question who the clear-cut A side is. Thus, Errol Spence calling all the shots could demand a 70-30 split. That makes no sense for a caliber fighter of Terence Crawford. He should be far more respected. He should be in far bigger fights. And he should be able to have a 50-50 split with Errol Spence. But he's losing traction and he's behind the 8 ball. But if he signs to the PBC and lands a Sean Porter fight and victorious in that, that would be a massive pay-per-view event. He's victorious in that Sean Porter fight. And then let's say he lands a fight against Keith Thurman. Right? Another massive pay-per-view event. Now he has a leg to stand on in negotiations with Errol Spence. And guess what? The pot got bigger for both guys. It got massive. And guess what? Now you're talking about Errol Spence and Terence Crawford doing upwards of 1.5 million views. So it only makes sense for Terence Crawford, and this is no slight to Top Rank and ESPN, but it just makes sense for the current stage of Terence Crawford's career for him to make this move. Because now, like I said, 2 massive pay-per-view events against Keith Thurman and Sean Porter. He's struggling to make a fight right now currently with Kell Brook. that speaks volumes. So drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.